I'm Richard Dodd, and you're listening to the Ecology Academy podcast. This is a show where we get to talk and learn about all things ecological, including interviews with top ecologists, both employers and employees, those working with ecologists, and also aspiring and inspiring career-seeking individuals setting out to make a difference. The show aims to provide you with insights, advice, and inspiration to help you succeed and excel as an effective ecologist and to make a real difference to our natural environment.
Today I'm speaking with not one, but two of my colleagues here at Wildwood Ecology, Ian Weller and David Withington. Now, all three of us have had something in common, other than us being in our 50s, and that is that we are all career changers. So, gentlemen, welcome to the Ecology Academy podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Now, it would be remiss of me to actually ask you any easier questions, just because you're my colleagues. So, when we usually start our podcasts, we ask a couple of quick-fire questions, very difficult questions for you to answer. I mean, they're extremely challenging. Are you up for the challenge?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. Look at the enthusiasm. Oh, dear me. Yeah, don't worry. There's no right or wrong answer. It'll be absolutely fine. So I'm going to take it in turn. So I'll start with Ian. So Ian, habitats, species, or ecosystems?
Species.
Okay. And if you had to choose between plants or animals?
Animals.
And if it birds or mammals?
Mammals.
Correct. Not really. I know there's no answer. Okay. Now, second question for you is Manchester United or Manchester City?
City.
That was a quick answer. Yeah.
I'm a Liverpool fan and I hate Man United.
Well, this is yes. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. If you had to choose only one of the following hobbies or pastimes, which would it be? Reading books, watching films, or listening to music? Only one of those.
Watching films.
Watching films. What film would you watch?
What
type of film, should we say?
Action, but being old, I like westerns.
Fair enough. Oh, is it only older people are allowed to watch wrestling?
Well, not necessarily, but my favourite movies would probably be starring John Wayne or Jimmy Stewart.
Okay.
So we're talking 1940s, 1950s movies.
I've heard of John Wayne, but not the other one.
You know Jimmy Stewart. You must have seen A Wonderful Life at Christmas.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. He was yeah.
James Stewart?
James Stewart, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go, yeah. I'm not on some familiar terms with him to call him Jimmy.
Yeah.
Old pals.
Mr. Stewart to you.
Yeah. And finally, you'll be ready to like, okay, finally, favourite Star Wars character?
I think Chewbacca.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Is that because you? Yeah, is that because he's got a lot of hair?
Oh, I'm jealous because I haven't got any.
Okay, well done. Thank you very much. Now, David, on to yourself.
Okay.
Now you've had the warm-up act.
I have.
Okay, now to deliver some serious firm answers. Now.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll put the same question to you to start with: habitats, species, or ecosystems?
Well, Ian went for species, so I'll go for habitat.
Oh, good. Okay. Terrestrial, freshwater, or marine?
Ooh, freshwater.
Okay. It ends there. You don't get a third choice.
No.
Freshwater there. Port Vale or Swindon Town?
Ooh, I'd go for Port Vale.
Okay, over Swindon.
Yeah. Because I'm a Forest Green supporter, so there's a bit of a rivalry between Forest Green and Swindon. So.
Yeah.
And Port Vale is near where my wife comes from, so.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's the Potters, isn't it? I think. Port Vale.
From the Staffordshire. That's it. It's, only slightly. Obviously, only slightly better than Stoke-on-Trent.
Stoke. Yeah.
Stoke City. Sorry. Okay. Rock and roll or death metal?
Rock and roll.
It was an obvious one, really. Yeah, I could have put punk in there, perhaps.
Yeah, I may have gone for that.
But you made, okay.
Yeah.
And finally, this may be a leading question. Finally, best and worst subjects at school.
Oh, best was biology, perhaps no surprise. Worst, probably history.
History.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like history. No.
Yeah. Probably because of sibling rivalry, because my brother was into history whereas I was more of a scientist. Who was a bit of sibling rivalry going on.
I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I think one of the main reasons why I got into sort of mammals was because my brother was into birds, and he just like slight differentiation. So he was big into got all the RSPB books and on birds and that. And I just went round down the other route. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, clearly there's only two routes: birds and mammals.
Yeah.
Clearly there's nothing else apparently. Yeah. Great, thank you very much for that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we're all warmed up. We'll go into sort of just an exploration of changing careers, because all three of us, as I say, we've switched careers at some point during our lives, and hopefully it may be the last one. Not that, as in we've found the right career, rather than actually for any other reason. Yeah. So I think we'll just open to sort of discussion. So I'll start with Ian first. So just tell me a little bit about your career. So going from school, what was that like, and then entering into your first career, and sort of time scale on that?
Yeah, so I left school at 16 and 3 months, actually. I was probably one of the very youngest people to join the Royal Navy at the time. I'd looked at the Army and the Air Force. My mum wouldn't sign the papers because I was underage to go in the Army, because she thought I was going to go to Northern Ireland and get shot. And I looked at the RAF and I thought, they don't go anywhere in the world. I didn't realise that they had bases around the world. So the Navy it was for me. So yeah, I joined up in 1984, and I spent 24 years in the Royal Navy, working my way up through the ranks. I had roughly 17 years out of 24 away from home. I stopped counting countries at over 80, and having been to lots of places several times over, like Gibraltar 17 times. So yeah, that was my main career, until that kind of become a bit stale for me. I was either 6 months in a shore establishment or going back to sea for another 2.5 years, and I'd kind of got settled down and didn't want to go to sea and spending 6-8 months away. So I thought my time had come. I'd done all the jobs that I wanted to, and promotion was what we used to call dead men's shoes. You'd only get promoted if there's somebody above you left the service or died, and you moved up there. But it wasn't a straight 1 in 1 out pecking order. Every year there was a competition to see who got the top of the pecking order. So you could be first 1 year and 10th the next year. So it just got too much to worry about, and the excitement had gone out of the job. So I left the armed forces and had that dreaded question of what was I going to do next.
Okay, well, take it back slightly then. So, I mean, what sort of what career, what sort of career did you sign up for then? So not just Royal Navy, but
I signed up for the full commission.
The full commission,
yeah, for the full 24 years to do that. You did have an option at the time when you signed up that you could put notice in, but it was a 12-month notice period.
Yeah.
Because generally things would change in that 12-month period, and you decided that it wasn't now your time to leave. But then as you got to the 12-year mark, you got what was called a pension trap, that if you left at 12 years, your pension was then held over until you were 65. Whereas if you did your full 24, did another 24 years, you got your pension when you left. So it was a choice of leave after 12 years and don't see your pension for 40 years, or give it another go for another 12 years and get your pension. So I stuck it out. I did at one point put in for redundancy, because like in all jobs, you get in the blues, you get the doldrums about a job and stuff like this. And around the early 90s, they started offering redundancies because they needed to cut back on the spending for the Ministry of Defence.
Which year was this, or what year?
So that must have been about 94, 96.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Bell, actually.
Yeah, they were doing big redundancies, and lots of people put in for it, but they kind of assessed your worth and decided whether they were going to accept your redundancy or not, and mine got turned down. A lot of people got turned down, but they'd had so much disheartenment with the armed forces at the time that they put the notice in anyway. So the armed forces as a whole ended up with a black hole of recruitment. They'd stopped the recruitment pipeline, but they'd also lost people in the middle. So it then became very difficult to fill the gap of experience. You'd have lots of inexperienced people and lots of very experienced people, but there was nobody in the middle because all that people had left and taken the redundancy because it was the right time for them. So I stuck it out and did my full 24.
Okay. So I think I remember that's because I used to be in the army. Obviously, the better service than questionable. So
not the senior service.
Yeah. So round about because I left in 1995 as well. So I mean that was the period, as you say, that I think they were looking for redundancies, and I think I had enough as well. Put my sort of discharge papers in, and just left us shortly after. But I think I had a little reduced time. I think they were desperate. Desperate to get rid of me, or just desperate to get rid of a lot of people. And so mine was a sort of a 9-month. Actually, still quite a long period. 9-month turnaround from there, really. Okay, so I'll come back to you a second. So I don't want to ignore this chap here. So David, tell me about your sort of your career up to becoming an ecologist. Then, so what was your education like, and then going into your first job?
Okay, well, my degree was in geology actually, and after graduating, I did a couple of years with a civil engineering company in the Black Country, who was mainly involved, or my role anyway, in the company was mainly involved with stabilising old mine workings, of which the Black Country is completely riddled, most of which are completely undocumented, going right the way back to Roman times and probably pre-Roman times. So the whole area is riddled with old mine shafts and very shallow mine workings. Famous places like the Crooked House, where a pub is like completely at a bizarre angle. It makes you feel drunk just going into it because it completely collapsed under the mine workings. So I was involved in that for a couple of years, which was interesting.
What sort of time period was that then?
Late 80s, so sort of 87 to 89, that sort of time. That was good, but I didn't feel that it was something I wanted to do long term in terms of civil engineering.
You were taking A levels at this point as well. Obviously, you went to university, but did you? Yeah. So, what sort of A levels did you take at that?
Sciences, but geology as well. So I did biology, geology, and geography actually. Started off with physics, but didn't get on with that.
What was that?
I wasn't doing maths either, and I wasn't. I mean, my maths is quite good, but I just found it quite tricky. I think I also responded very much to who was teaching me rather than what I was being taught. So I didn't get on very well with the teacher, I guess, and my lack of motivation probably came into it as well. So I ended up somehow getting on a degree course, and enjoyed the geology. I really enjoyed it. In fact, ended up doing more geology because after I did 2 years at the civil engineering course, I went back to do PGCE, teacher training, for a year at Leicester. So I decided to do secondary science. So that was, when was that, 89? And that was just at the time when the government was bringing in the national curriculum.
Right.
So I remember virtually every week a new curriculum turned up. It was constant. It was the main theme of our PGCE year, was looking at various versions of the national curriculum. So it was very much a very great time of change, when I'm not sure how it was previous to that, but post that, then education became very politicised. It was, I think, to a large extent, it was not so much ignored, but not so given such political priority as it was after that sort of watershed of the national curriculum time, I guess. Then I ended up teaching first of all in Birmingham for 10 years or so. And that was, again, going back to my degree, I was lucky enough, in fact, pretty much all my teaching, I've been lucky enough to teach geology, which is quite rare in secondary schools, but I tended to move towards chemistry, so I sort of ended up being a sort of full-time chemistry teacher with geology as a bonus, really, I guess.
It's all in the Midlands.
I was at the beginning I was in Birmingham, and then I always had this I guess probably romantic idea of being a special needs teacher and really making a difference, and I left this, which was quite a academically high-flying secondary school, and I was taken on by this head teacher at a local special needs school without any retraining whatsoever. So I don't know what this head teacher was thinking about, but for me to go straight from, as I said, this quite academically high-flying secondary school to be put in front of a classfuls of special needs pupils without any retraining was a complete folly on my part, and his as well. It was a bit of a silly thing for this head teacher to do, really, to expect somebody to make that leap. So I didn't last there very long. Was completely out of my depth. I didn't know what I was doing, and so then I ended up moving down to Gloucester, pretty much going back to what I was doing in Birmingham, which was mainly chemistry, but with geology. In fact, I sort of developed the geology while I was there, and we ended up doing a geology A-level through my sort of initiative, really, and we've got quite a good group of geologists actually at the course at their school, many of which went on to do geology degrees. So that would I was in Gloucester for 20 years. So I only left. When did I leave? 99? Oh no, not talking about 99. 2018 it must have been.
2018,
yeah.
Right, okay.
Or 2017, 2018.
And I suppose, I mean, a question for both of you really now then. So, and then you switched over to ecology, is that right?
Yeah, not straight away. It's probably took me best part of 10 years to make the gradual transition, yeah.
Well, and I say ecology, but in sort of broader sense, I was biology. I mean, because Ian, what was your understanding? So you decided you're going to leave the Navy. What sort of career paths were you looking at that point?
The armed forces tended to have trends of industries that was going through over a period of years, and everybody who left it in one period all became plumbers. And the next thing was fibre optics, because that was the next thing in industry that come along. And when I left, it was project management, and then years after that, it became maritime security. So project management seemed to be the trend of things to go in for the armed forces. And they always tell you when you're leaving that you're worth more to a civilian company than you are to military companies. In some cases, yes, but if you're retraining and going to something you've never really done before, then you have got transferable skills, but sometimes not enough skills in niche areas that they want. So it's quite difficult to decide where you're going to. And again, getting into project management without having done it before, you can't just walk into project management. You have to become an assistant or an apprentice at things and work your way up. So I was looking for jobs with project management assistants jobs, and luckily, fingers crossed, I've only been out of work since about the age of 14 for 3 days in my life.
Okay.
And that was from the date that I left the Navy to on like the Thursday to the starting my first job outside the Navy on the Monday is like the longest period I've had out of work. So I was working for a civilian company that had a military contract doing project management, but it just didn't work for me. I felt like I was a glorified secretary all the time, so I had to find something new. And I've got quite a inspirational wife, and she can see that I'm not happy in something. So he used to give me the proverbial size 5 up the buttocks. And she actually found me a job working for the NHS. And the NHS were rolling out apprenticeships, and nobody knew anything about apprenticeships. So I applied for a job. There was 2 jobs on offer. There's only 2 people applied for these jobs, so we both got it. And I was doing apprenticeships in the NHS for 4.5 years.
And which part of the UK is this then?
The job was based in Bristol, but I was mainly covering the Thames Valley from Milton Keynes all the way down to Southampton in the first years. And then contracts changed and the role changed slightly, and I became like an apprenticeship consultant for the NHS for the whole of the south. So I was covering Cornwall to Essex at that point, and I was travelling the country to have 20-minute meetings with GP surgeries in Cornwall. The next day I was in Essex, or I could be in Southampton. So it just kind of got me down, and I was working from home, but I didn't have any incentive. I felt guilty drawing a really good wage, but not actually doing anything without generating my own work. So it kind of got me down a bit. And again, my wife came in and gave me a proverbial and threw a prospectus at me for the Royal Agricultural University. I like the outdoors, always like the outdoors. I've got my own allotment. I like gardening. I like wildlife. And there was a course there for wildlife and countryside management as a foundation degree. But again, I was always a bit sceptical about it because I left school with 3 O-levels. I had been in full-time education for almost 30 years, and I didn't want to set myself up to fail. So going on a full-time degree course was too scary for me. I didn't want to go that far and fail at the first hurdle. So I did the foundation degree at the RAU, and then the 1-year top-up for the degree, because I embedded myself in academia once again. I found my feet with education, realised what I could do and was capable of when it is. So there was no stopping me. I wanted the full degree and I wanted a first. I was desperate for a first. Only because the kids have got a first and I had to keep the trend going. I didn't want to be the lesser mortal in the family. And that's, whilst I was at university, was the point I reflected on what career options were available to me and the choice I've made.
Great, thanks, Ian. So, David, in terms of your thoughts about career change, then, so when did what sort of decision? Why decide to change career from being, a teacher into sort of a different field?
I guess it was just being a teacher for 30 years. I guess I was getting to the point where it was do something or else I'll be seeing it out to retirement, and I wanted to try something different before I reached that point where it was like point of no return, as it were, in terms of how many years I'd left to make it a worthwhile change. So I really did want to try, because although, as I said, I did that little bit at the beginning in civil engineering, most of a vast majority of my working life was in the classroom, and I really just wanted to try something different. That was the main thing. And the school I was at, after you did so many years service, they gave you a term sabbatical. And so I ended up doing a bit of postgraduate study in environmental management, which was mostly about policy at University of Gloucestershire, a local university. So I did that for a term full-time and then carried on part-time to do the full postgraduate diploma. And part of that was looking at ecology. And having sort of been a lifelong birder and always been interested in wildlife, it struck me that maybe that was where I should be aiming for. That was, I didn't even realise there was such a thing as a professional ecologist. Apart from people like David Attenborough and David Bellamy and Chris Packham and those guys, that's how you could make money being an ecologist. I didn't realise there was such a thing as consultant ecology. So that got me thinking, well, that's combine a career with a lifelong interest to become a professional ecologist.
And where did you first? I mean, you identified there that there was a career option open to you there. So how did you take that further then? So I mean, you're doing this postgraduate course, you say?
Yeah. Once I'd finished that, then essentially I got in touch with all the local consultancies. Strangely enough, I didn't include Wildwood. I don't know why you got missed off my list.
Well, we may not have been in Gloucester at that point.
Possibly. So I got in touch with all the local consultancies, of which there aren't that many, but there's quite a few in the Stroud, Bristol, Gloucester, Cheltenham area. Just offering my services, saying, could I do a bit of work experience, work shadowing, just help out. And I was a bit disappointed initially by the response, which wasn't very positive really, but then a couple of local companies took me on board and started to give me some work experience doing surveys, bat surveys, reptile surveys.
Can I just take it back? So,
sorry.
Take it. I mean, you'd be interested to say, do you know the reasons why people weren't interested? Was it companies didn't respond back? How did you? Was it email or was it actually by letter?
No, I tended to do it by email, which isn't always the best way of communicating. I did phone a couple as well, and I think the general thing is that I'll be more of a liability than a help, and why would a company, just take me on? Because I couldn't, I didn't have any experience as a professional, so it's just a case of me turning up and sort of standing around, really. And I must admit, for a time, I did get a little bit despondent by that, by sort of not getting any feedback from people, and I thought, maybe after all it wasn't for me and I wasn't going to get him. I thought maybe, although they didn't necessarily know how old I was, but I wondered whether it was my age, and they thought, well, what's the point of training somebody who may not be I'm not that old, but maybe wouldn't be doing the job for very long, or whatever, or we'd rather take on youngsters, give them a chance. If we're going to take on so many people to train up, or to give a chance of training or experience, then let's go for the young guys.
Because I don't know if people found this that older people expect a higher salary. I think perhaps they wouldn't be. We wouldn't actually appreciate being on a salary of. I mean, a couple of years ago it was 16, 17. Now it's a bit higher, obviously higher. I'm glad to say appreciate that. It's up to 19,000, and if you've been on a salary that's considerably more than that, I can see that some employers would go, "Why would you take such a risk?" So I don't know if it's like a sort of fear from an employer to go, actually, you know what? I fear you rejecting my offer. I mean, I'm just sort of paraphrasing it, but I think that could be something that some employers look at. That actually, your expectations may be greater, and you don't really know the industry, and that could be one sort of perception of it. So, Ian, so going on to your course then. So you got onto this. What was the name of the course?
I did wildlife and countryside management. As a foundation degree, and then the 1 year top up. But again, it's one of those courses that you go into where you got several modules, and you can choose which modules you wanted to do. And I weirdly, being having a family and a mortgage and stuff, I couldn't afford to not work while I was in study. So I did the foundation degree part-time over 3 years, and the 1 year top-up over 1 year. But instead of being selfish towards me and picking the modules that I thought suited me, I picked the modules that fitted with my work, my part-time work that I had to bring in the salary to keep things going. In the hope that I'd get my degree and there would be a job out there at the end of it. So the choices I made may have been different if my home life circumstances were different. but it's a risk you take and stuff. Going through the course, I just put 110% into it, knowing that I had to go to work the day that your assignment was due in at 10 o'clock. You couldn't afford to be up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning finishing off your essay. It had to be done and dusted by 9 o'clock, send it in, put it to bed, get on with it, because the next day you've got to live and get on with your life. So you had to be very disciplined, or I had to be very disciplined, to go through the course and to attend the days. And luckily I had managers that knew I was on an education programme. So they did allow me some flexibility to go on some study days and stuff like this, because they weren't part of the day that you was at university. Some days they were different, so I had to take leave and stuff like this. So it was a big challenge to fit it all in. But one that I'm glad I've done. And the reason for getting the degree was that whilst I was in project management and I'd had enough, I was applying for jobs that paid a similar salary with a similar key skills that was needed. But on the questionnaire it says, have you got a degree? And I couldn't tick the box.
Yeah.
And the same as David, when he was getting a bit despondent, when he was getting no responses back from things, I was always thinking that I was going in the no degree pile, and that was the second lot of people they would look at after they'd looked at the degree people. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I had to get a degree, to tick that box. So when I applied for jobs, I could tick that box. And it didn't matter what the degree was in at the time, just so I could tick that box.
Tick that box, yeah.
And it wasn't until my third year at the university, in the modules I was doing then, that I'd kind of narrowed down where I wanted to be. I was volunteering with a wildlife trust, and that seemed to me that it was a young person's game. That you, like David said, that they took on younger people. They have had them as volunteers, they've had them as part-times, they've been there they know that person, and the risk is reduced. Whereas somebody of a mature age that's had no long-term experience and they're coming into it, it's a higher risk, so you don't get into it. And again, I looked at forestry, and again, when you're using a chainsaw all day and chopping trees down and moving logs and stuff like this, again, like David, I'm not that old and I'm physically fit, but spending 8 hours a day doing that, it was going to take its toll. So I had to think about where my career choices were going, and in terms of my physical ability, my work-life balances that was going on, and the skill set I had, which kind of narrowed things down a bit to a less physical approach, and that's why the module that you delivered really made my mind up that ecology is a bit of both. For me, you'll be outdoors doing that, which ticks the box of being an outdoors person, but then it goes and fulfills the box of the project management element, where you are customer facing, you're troubleshooting, you're coming up with solutions for something, you're meeting policy, and at the end of it you've got a project that started off from an initial inquiry by a client to preserving the habitats for wildlife, but still allowing the developer or the private person who's doing something to get their dream as well. So it's a combination of the two, and working life in balance.
So problem solving.
Absolutely. If they want to take the roof off, and you've got a bat roost in there, what solution can we come up with for them to either keep that bat roost, which is the preferred option, or how do we mitigate against that to give them so they can have their dream home, if you like, the one that they've saved and worked for all their lives, without detriment being to these special animals that we have.
Okay, so go to yourself, David. Then, in terms of, Ian had a family to support there. Was it very much a similar scenario yourself?
Yeah. At the time, yeah. Now my children have grown up and gone, but yeah, at the time they were still living with us when I was going through the change. Yeah.
And so was it a similar similar process in terms of, okay, well, I need to laser focus my attention on something, or was it sort of more of a, you had a bit more time to actually view the sort of careers you're going into?
It sort of gathered momentum, I suppose, because at first when I started to think about it, I just assumed it would be there in the background, something that I did alongside my teaching. So may even possibly do a bit of part-time, gradually one would start to, the ecology would start to develop possibly, and then I'd sort of gradually maybe reduce my hours teaching. But in the end, it didn't turn out like that. Well, I suppose it did sort of, because I was doing a lot of survey work while I was still a full-time teacher.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, when I was getting a bit of knockback, I thought, well, what's an employer looking for? So to try and make myself more employable. So I thought, well, it's qualifications and it's experience. So I tried to get both of those. So I worked out, eventually, I did get a couple of consultancies who were interested enough to give me a chance, and I started to do some survey work with them. And once I got that, then once I could say to other consultancies, I've got some survey work, then everyone was all, oh yeah, great, we'll have you. And the other side of it was the qualification in terms of getting licenses. So while I was still a teacher, I got my Great Crested Newt license, just to try and make myself more employable. What would a consultancy look for in terms of me being useful?
Yeah.
And having your licenses is one of the most useful things, I guess.
So you actively sought out, what was required to actually gain the license. Yeah. First of all, obviously, what employers are looking for, but then actually gain the license. And did you were paying for this course on yourself?
Yeah. So basically, I through a university, I got my Great Crested Newt license, and also got my first job, because my employer then, my first job in consultancy, they said, well, if you were prepared to get up, go and collect bottles from a pond for newt, and then go and do a day's teaching, then you're obviously really want to do this work. So it was that got me the job in the end, the fact that I was prepared to do the survey work and then go and do a day's teaching. I
think clearly there's similarity there, isn't there, then, between the fact that yes, you're pursuing this additional or either complementary or extra career, additional career, at the same time as juggling family life and also maybe academic studies. And so, do you think that's? I mean, I'm just looking at my own sake as my own career path as well. Do you think that's something that's? Does that stem from having that maturity to plan itself, or is it just like a sort of hit and hope sort of strategy? I mean, what works best for yourself? So, Ian.
I think, like David pointed out earlier, that there's always the risk that you're too old to be employed. Companies aren't prepared to take the risk because you may not be long term, or due to your age you could be off sick a lot of time, and they're investing a lot of money into somebody that's not, or a person that's not going to come to fruition as they see it in 10-15 years time. Companies probably still look at employees with careers of 10-15 years of longevity. So I think, like David said, to make yourself more employable, you've got to go above and beyond. I guess the younger people that are coming from university and people at university these days doing similar courses, they probably started going to volunteering for wildlife trusts when they were 13, 14, 15, and they've already had 5 or 6 years experience working part-time, voluntary, doing the summer camps or whatever that we never had because of our careers changed. So they've got that advantage. So you have to show something to an employer that you're worth taking that risk. And it may be the fact that, you're doing a degree course and you're still doing 30 hours a week at work, and you're volunteering in evenings and weekends, to show some sort of determination to want to do the job, and that if they take the risk of employing you, they're going to get some value from you, as opposed to somebody who's done a degree, give me a job. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the idea of sort of being too old, I think, is a tricky one, really, because I've never been someone who has taken. I've never been an employer, so I don't know, necessarily what it's like to look for the right person. But I think in terms of age, then if you take on a 21, 22-year-old, are you as an employer expecting them to work for you for 10 years? And you think, well, we're not. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm settled. I've got a life where I am. I'm not going to suddenly get married and move somewhere else, or the family's going to have a great change in terms of what's going to happen to it. Probably not. So in terms of long, the medium term, then I would probably think employing an older person is probably more of a stable option than both of us have said. The risk of taking on an older person, it's probably less risk.
Less risk, yeah. It's interesting because the mindset really. So because you're absolutely right. That's from an employer's. From an employer's point of view, and I'm only one employer. Clearly, there's hundreds out there. I look at the person. So can this person not only do the job, but also advance themselves and sort of our industry, the career forward as well? Will it be advantage to them? Will it be advantage to the company? And when it's all about the company, is it the right sort of fit within the company too? So not necessarily do I look at any discrimination. So whether it be age or any sort of discrimination. So that certainly features with it, but I can see there may be some sort of an unconscious bias towards age and gender and so forth. And I think this is something that our industry may, should be looking at, and I think they are looking at it. But it is down to the employers to actually just take a step back and just review their own sort of recruitment policies. What is it they're actually looking for? So I really like that. The fact that actually, being a career changer actually is less of a risk than actually taking on a new person, new to the career. That's maybe early 20s.
But I guess in certain industries, whether this one is the same, there's always the risk for the employer taking on a more mature person that has got more life skills, that they could be a challenge to it, because they're going to say, well, we've got years of experience, we never did that in our last company, you should do this and that. Whereas perhaps a younger person, you can nurture into the industry. So again, it's that balance of the organisation and where you're going, whether you take on somebody who's mature that's got all the skills you want and they can just fit them into a slot and on off they go, or do you need somebody younger that's going to be your next? I've been in the apprenticeship, there was a saying that you were growing your own, and it's true for all industries. You take somebody young, you give them the skills that you want in your way, to trained up, because that is your next tranche of ecologists, consultants, senior ecologists, principals. That along that, they've done that in your company, and you can train them in that way. Whereas perhaps a more mature person, we might not get to principal ecologists because of the time scales of life that we might not get there. So I think it's a tricky one for as an employer, of what is the balance. And I think having a team of young and mature, or less skilled, more skilled, however you want to badge it, is what a team's all about, because you need diversity in your team, whether it's age, experience, licenses, interests. You need that for your team to gel together. So as an employer, you can say, well, we've got somebody in our team that's interested in that, or we've got somebody I know is capable of picking that up and running with it, and I can give it to them, and it alleviates some of the issues you will have as an employer as to how you bring your team and the company and the industry along with developments in time.
Yeah, I think it is. It's having being open, all parties being open-minded. So the employer being open-minded to the fact that actually, what can this person contribute towards the company, if they're going to look at it directly from the commercial aspect, but also to themselves as well. So and that's from everyone coming on board. So being open-minded towards having early entry, early career ecologists coming on board to mature people coming on board. Everyone has something to contribute, and as long as you've got that ability to listen and understand and just necessarily agree with everything is put forward, but actually go, I appreciate your viewpoint, and I think this, and as long as we come to a consensus, I think that's having that sensible debate. I think that's going to be important for a company to grow and develop, and I think those are the ones that will survive. But just moving on into you've got a taste now. Go to David. You've got a taste now of being an ecologist. Okay, what sort of traits do you think that you brought into that career? And equally so, what traits do you think employers are looking for with career changes?
Okay. Well, the traits that I brought in was an enthusiasm for a start, an enthusiasm for the job, enthusiasm for the worth of the job, feeling as though I was doing something worthwhile, and also sort of skills that I'd developed on a hobby level, as it were, being a birder, being able to just generally being interested in wildlife, and also wanting to learn. I mean, when I first started as I think a lot of ecologists say, your botany skills are not brilliant, but they're an awful lot better now than they were, mine. So that willingness to learn, and if I don't know something, wanting to find out. Wanting to have the answer. So I brought that natural inquiry, natural
curiosity.
Curiosity, and wanting to progress. And I think that comes to a certain extent from the classroom, because it's hard for when a child asks you a question and you have to say, "Oh, sorry, I don't know." So that need to sort of gather information, to gather stuff, and predicting having a good idea as to what might be important for the pupils, and you can take that to a job as well. Being able to look into the future, being able to put yourself in the job and say, right, what are my clients going to want to know? What do I need to know? Being prepared, because if you're not prepared in the classroom, you've had it.
Yeah.
You need to be 110% prepared, because a classroom full of pupils will soon find out if you're not. And so I take that when I go to a site. I think, what do I need to know before I go? What does a client need from me? How do I get that information? How does the client get that information? Right down to just, where's the site? Do I know exactly where I'm going? Do I know exactly how big the site is? Do I know exactly what I'm going to expect when I get there?
Yes.
Just having that level of preparation. But also that those sort of, as Ian suggested before, those life skills where you're just able to talk to people, really, communication, being on site and being able to talk to, a variety of people who you might have on site, and just getting on with people. I think is something that you can only gain, or can only do, I think, by experience. I can anyway. I know some people are naturally very gregarious and they can just get on with everybody and anybody, but it's taken a while for me to be able to do that and feel comfortable. I think communication is key, really.
Yeah, I think actually right. It's having that and communication in all its formats, as you say. It's not just about discussing, talking, but it's listening, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's listening, as you said, listening to the client, what they want, listening to your colleagues as well, and then coming to some sort of solution at the end of it. Yeah. So going from you completed your degree at the Royal Agricultural University. Okay, so obviously I know the answer to this slightly, but. Okay, your first career role as an ecologist then. So, I mean, you want to say, so you worked with, who was the first company you worked for?
God. Do you know, I can't remember the name of them. Because I kind of put myself out there, as David said, trying to have the enthusiasm to learn. And I did a quick search engine search and found consultants and I did the same as what a lot of people put out there. So I was taken on by Wildwood as a volunteer to start with, because I was asking you about volunteer opportunities, just to get to know the industry, because again, I didn't know which part of the industry I wanted to go into. So I was volunteer for a wildlife trust, I volunteered here, and then you took me on as a seasonal to do bat surveying, and I was also working with another company. So I did two. I was trying to increase my networking web to see what was out there and what was available for me, and try and get hits on your website and wherever to see which companies would be interested in you. And again, doing the surveys, I'd never done a bat survey before, other than what we did on the module by checking out a building as part of your PRA assessment. I'd never seen a bat in my life, so my ecology knowledge and skills were pretty limited. But again, as David says, being a mature person, you have the drive to develop yourself, to learn, to listen, to understand what you need to do to be attractive to an employer. Thankfully, I was attractive.
In more ways than one.
I had a shave that day. And then I could see it was the industry I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
And whilst I was working here as a part-timer, again, the understanding that the industry is the cycle of a year of an ecologist is a bit like a roller coaster. It starts off steady at the beginning of the year, then it ramps up to a high peak in July, August, when you're doing most of your surveys, and then it comes down again towards the year. So it was like towards the end of the year, it's going, well, is the work there available for me? Yeah. And as a small company, and a mature person, I fully understand how businesses work and how you get money in, and you can't have money coming in if the jobs aren't there, and you know that. And I guess that was always at the back of my mind, thinking that's going on, so I had to start again spreading my wings and looking for it, and applying for bigger consultancies that you get out there. Some with these 200-300 ecologists on the side, but it was my realization at the time that working with a smaller consultancy was what I wanted. It seemed that the larger companies have massive projects going on where you are a small fish in a big pond, and they wanted blood out of a stone, and you had to spend 4 or 5 nights away a week, which is not what I wanted a career change for. I'd spent all my nights away in the last 24 years. I wanted to come home just about every night. I wanted to be home at weekends. That was my choice in life at this. So a small consultancy really fitted for me in terms of maintaining my work-life balance, but progressing my career of where I wanted to go. And obviously, having met you previously, and then the part-time experience that I got with it, I could see that it was a company that I wanted to work for, and hence I kept pushing and pushing to try and see. Well, I would go that far. Offering my services and skills in a kind way, to see if there's an opportunity.
Well, I think you've got to be proactive, haven't you? So I think that's one thing that's the thing I respect as an employer, is that people are you've taken time to actually write, discuss, talk to an employer, and I just feel courteous then to actually listen and just understand what is it that a person requires, and if there's an opportunity there to be had, that I can help. That's something that that's I just thrive upon, really about it. It's just offering roles and people to advance themselves, really. Now, gentlemen, I'm very conscious of the time now, but I just wanted to sort of bring it to a closure now. And there's so much we could actually talk about, but I'm just thinking about in terms of let's look at the industry we're in. but also, some advice that would probably give other people coming through, whether it be, emerging ecologists or whether it be actually career changers. So let's look at our industry. So the problems you faced obtaining this career that you're in at this moment in time, was it extremely straightforward? Was it complicated? Were there, was there support out there? What does our industry need to do more of, or less of, or change in order to actually attract good talents that's coming through from people who are switching careers? So
yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I became quite despondent to the point where I was going to give up. Thought it's just not going to happen, because I was trying to put myself out there and I wasn't getting much feedback back, apart from one or two, and then I did a couple of years just doing some bat surveys, not really thinking that this is going to happen. It's just going to be one of those things that happens in the background, and then and then it started to look, and then it all started to happen really quite quickly. I remember it was just like about 3 years ago where I suddenly got interviews for about 4 or 5 jobs. So I think it's in terms of any advice I could give, that don't give up, just keep going. If you really want to do it, just keep going, and hopefully something will turn up. It did for me, and no reason why it shouldn't for anybody else. So yeah, because it turned into, because the a bit like what Ian was saying, I was getting offered interviews for seasonal work.
Yeah.
And at that time I had a couple of boys at university. Thought, well, I can't afford the risk of giving up a full-time job if it's only going to be till September, and then that's it. Sorry folks, you can't do anything now till so I was a bit, I got offered one, just a seasonal post, and I had to turn it down. And I thought, well, should I really just risk it and go for it, or should I play it safe and turn this job down, which I turned down. And then it's about 2 weeks later I got offered a full-time post. But yeah, in terms of advice, yeah, I'd say don't, you will hit some brick walls sometimes, but don't let that put you off. I think just keep going.
Oh, great. Thank you. And Ian, any sort of so in terms of anything more the profession could do, or employers could do, or actually I say career advice to people switching careers?
I think to reiterate what David said, I think the industry runs predominantly on seasonal work, and it's really disheartening. I think it's really exciting if you come out of university and you're going into this industry and you get offered a seasonal job and you go, great, I've got my foot in the door somewhere, but there's always the risk that come the end of September that door is going to get slammed shut in your face, and you need a plan B as an individual, because I would say the majority of the time that is likely to happen, that it's going to come. So I think that is where there's a weakness in the industry, that there is no long-term employment solutions for ecologists coming into early career ecologists, because they get the seasonal job, they're going to get the 6 months experience. And again, when I was applying for a job, it said you must have at least 2 years worth of seasonal work for us to be interested in you, on top of your degree. So you've done your degree, you've got no money, then you do seasonal work, and then you have to come out of that industry to get some more money to get back into it, to still not knowing if you've got a job after 2 or 3 years. And I think this is what happens, that people get their seasonal work and realise that there are very few long-term full-time jobs in the industry, because there's a silo of employer requirements for seasonal work and nothing at the end of it, that people go, well, is this the point I become a consultant?
Yeah. Because
they've gained some experience, they think they know what they're doing, but there isn't a company there to give them the thing. So as a consultant, you can kind of pick and choose, as an independent consultant, so you can pick and choose what you want to do. And that's the risk, that you train all these young people up, but there is no long-term future. And again, I think as the industry, if you was to look at the career path of an ecologist, it's virtually non-existent. You don't say 2 years as a seasonal, full-time job, 4 years as an assistant ecologist, and you then become a consultant ecologist. There is no, this is all in boundaries because it depends on your experiences and the licenses you can get and the work that you're working on. But there isn't that career structure, so nobody knows what it is. So I think people get disheartened after doing a couple of years and can't see the future, can't see where it's going. So they either come out of their industry or set up as an independent, and that's where companies lose that talent.
I think you're absolutely right. I think I think we could go into a new chapter here. In terms of looking at that framework, a structure which will give confidence to all employees, really, isn't it? That that here's the criteria you need. These are the qualities, and it's not. I don't think it's I don't think it should be time frame led. Experience. Yes, you could say you need 2 years' experience, but what do you gain in 2 years? I think the experience can be sort of stretched a little bit. Some people may gain a lot more, the same amount of experience within 6 months compared with someone over 3-4 years. So I think there needs to be some flexibility there. But you're right. I think some sort of guidance. Okay, if you hit this level, you should be expected to achieve, this promotion. And so some structure there. You're right. I think it's if people could see that, you could see you could yourself remaining within a company for longer, because there is that career projection. Or if you can see, well, I think I'm going to last until senior, but this company doesn't offer anything past senior. At least there's a decision to be made, to stick it until that point. And things change, of course, but I think you're right. I think there's a lot of insecurity within our profession, and I think as employers we need to address that, because I think it's only fair upon people entering our profession at any level. I think that's something that we should be focusing on. Great. So final words then. As I say, you mentioned a couple of things about career advice, but there's one thing you've learned in the past couple of years, you say, as an ecologist. What is it? And also, what are your plans? Future plan? This is not an appraisal, by the way. but what are your aspirations for the next couple of years then? So go with Dave.
I think what I've learned is that I can enjoy my work, which obviously as a career changer, there was a reason why I wanted to change career, that I wasn't enjoying my work. So to actually have a refresh and sort of start again almost and say, right, I can wipe the slate clean and I can be the best I can at this new, and then that's been a real challenge, but also it's been really enjoyable so that's the main thing that I've got. And where do I want to be? Go a little bit against what Ian was just saying, that yet the time of life where promotion isn't necessarily what you want. It's not all about rising up through the ranks. And so in terms of, I would just like to become more competent at what I do. And if that leads to promotion, great, that's fine. But it's not my aim. It's I'm going to do this and then that will happen and that'll happen. It's literally just I'm going to do this because then I'll be better at my job. And if something else, as I said, if that leads on to other things, that's fine. But promotion promotion is not the main reason why I'm here. Yeah.
And Ian?
I think over the past 2 years, like David said, what I've learned is that you've got to keep going at things. It's not an industry that develops you overnight. It's something that happens. So, for instance, getting your bat license could take 2 to 5 years, depend on the situation and the projects that you're working on. You may be lucky enough that you're out there and you're handling bats every single day, and you get in there and you can tick the boxes. In some cases, you may be working on projects that don't touch bats, so you're all on great crested newts. So I think you've got to keep going on it, and I think you have got to have a bit of a plan of where you're going. It's one of those industries that you can go down and say, well, I'll go down the dormouse route, but you may be in a county that's got no dormouse, so what good's your license for it? And the same with Great Crested Newts. You become a specialist, but then you kind of narrow your field of where you're going. So I think it's having a plan, understanding the career structure that's available to you, and how you can progress through your own interests and the opportunities that the company's given you to get that. And again, same as David says, it's not necessarily all about the promotion. And I feel that at the end of my working week, that I'm happy if I know I have contributed to the team, and we're all on the same page and we're all working together. It's not about me in the company. Thankful of promotions and pay rises and all the rest of it comes in it. It takes hard work to go to it, but you're only going to get that promotion if you are working as a team and working with your colleagues, because standing out as an individual doesn't take the team or the company anyway. It just takes the individual somewhere. So teamwork and communication are the things to take forward.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I just want to just say thank you so much for being agreeable to actually come onto this podcast and talk through career changes with the Ecology Academy podcast. But for all, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoy our show and want to help, then please click on the subscribe button and rate us on your favourite podcast player, as that's how you can inspire ecologists in the making, help retain great talent, and provide insights of our industry to a much wider audience of why ecology really does matter. Thank you. And remember, learning is a lifelong endeavour, so stay curious, be adventurous, and build bridges for others to cross.